Hello, today I will be talking about colorism in the Black community and its impact on popular culture and media. Before I begin my presentation, I would like to go over some quick vocabulary words. The first one, of course, is racism. Racism is a belief that race is a fundamental determinant of human traits and capacities, and that racial differences produce an inherent superiority of one particular race. Colorism. Colorism is prejudice or discrimination against individuals with dark skin, typically among people of the same ethnic or racial group. Internalized racism. Internalized racism is a form of inward oppression. It's an assumed racial inferiority on the part of Black, Native American, and other BIPOC community members. Passing. Passing occurs when a person classified as a member of a specific racial group is accepted and perceived, aka passes, as a member of another racial group. Passing was a very common practice, I would say, both during, throughout the Reconstruction era and so on and so forth. And an important point to remember is that it wasn't merely to satisfy some vain desire to be aesthetically pleasing or fit, like this look of attractiveness or trying to achieve attractiveness. Rather, it was done out of a means of survival and essentially like self-preservation and a better life. There have been several books and now a Netflix movie that recount the history regarding the act of passing within Black communities. So colorism is universal. Colorism impacts all of us, all people of color impacted by colonization throughout the globe. Settler colonialists unfortunately brought with them a set of violent standards in which they demanded the colonized to uphold. An example of such standards, you might ask? Eurocentric standards of beauty, or Western beauty standards. It wasn't just about a physical standard, however. An individual's skin tone provided them with accessibility, safety, access to better jobs, to better opportunities, to better roles. It was social capital. We could talk about the impacts colonization has on colorism throughout the globe all day. But because of time, I will specifically be talking about colorism within the U.S. and we'll be looking at how slavery impacted the way Black folks viewed themselves and one another. So like I said before, colorism has its origins in both colonialism and slavery. We'll be focusing more so on the origins it has within slavery. Throughout learning about the history of racial reformation in class, we learn and we know that white settlers, slave owners, and colonial powers used racial theory for years to serve their own interests. They were obsessed with classifying and distinguishing the people they were subjecting their violence to, because it better served their systems of control and exploitation. Though they were subjected to violence, oftentimes lighter-skinned enslaved individuals held very specific advantages over their Black or their darker-skinned peers. The darker you were, the more chances that you were staying out in the field and working all day and night, and just enduring a lot of harsh labor, physical labor. Whereas the lighter-skinned enslaved individual, which their light skin is probably a result of, a slave master raping and violently, sexually abusing enslaved women, thus having her produce a mixed-race child. The lighter-skinned enslaved individual stayed in the house. The journal Skin Tone and Stratification in the Black community details these advantages, stating that oftentimes mixed-race enslaved individuals were sold at the highest prices, with white aristocrats preferring to purchase light-skinned Black people. So during this time, a lot of racist ideologies and caricatures begin to form, begin to strengthen. So you have like a lot of souvenirs, postcards, toys, and books, and they were all just symbolic of the racist time period. Many Americans, even many white Americans, many slave owners, use derogatory words to signify, black people's skin, calling them tar baby, calling them midnight, blackie, Uncle Tom, pickaninny, savage. And you have these caricatures like Mammy, Uncle Tom, and calling them, of course, nigger. And then you have derogatory terms and nicknames for lighter skinned black folks like high yellow, light bright, yellow bone, red bone, red, piss color yellow, mulatto, and mud. All very derogatory terms. And think about what that does to black people, constantly hearing that, constantly seeing, this grotesque caricature of what is supposed to be you just shared around as souvenirs and on postcards. And I think about what that does to the self-esteem and what that does, over time. And there was a article that I was reading, and there was this quote that stuck out to me, and it says, "Entrenched in the minds of many Africans from a young age is the adage, if it's white, it's all right. A belief that has chipped away at the self-esteem of millions." Black caricatures as entertainment. So the first depictions of black folks in American media was The Minstrel. These shows depicted black folks as racist, stereotypical caricatures, and this was normal and seen as comedy. The Minstrel was a space that allowed racist sentiments the space to thrive and to run freely. The possessive investment of whiteness talks about how the American economic and political life gave different racial groups unequal access to citizenship and property, while practices, including Wild Wild West shows, minstrel shows, racist images in advertising, and Hollywood films industrialized racism by igniting ethnically diverse European American audiences into an imagined community, one called into being in the solidarity of white supremacy. Not only were minstrel shows incredibly racist, they were harmful to the well-being and self-esteem of black folks in general. Stereotypes were enforced upon black folks and non-black folks regarding black folks, which leads us to assume there was a significant amount of internalization taking place. It's extremely difficult to develop and maintain a positive self-image when your entire existence and appearance is being demonized nationally, constantly. So colorism and pop culture. Colorism is still incredibly prevalent within the black community and throughout American society as a whole. Not only have there been reports that claim employers are more likely to favor lighter-skinned African American candidates, job candidates, I should say. Musicians, actors, and entertainers of lighter complexions have an easier time receiving record contracts, song features, and casting roles. In the same breath, many dark-skinned musicians have come forth expressing how difficult it is for them to land record deals. Colorism also disproportionately impacts black women and femmes. It is quite common to hear black rappers rap about only wanting red bones or light-skinned women by their side. In their videos, which is objectifying to begin with, only having lighter skin or non-black video girls and video models. So colorism in television and in media. Magazine companies are also guilty of fostering colorism by frequently demonizing artists with dark skin tones and making them even darker, or editing the pictures of darker skinned celebrities to make them lighter. Colorism is also still highly prevalent within the film and movie industry, with many of the same light-skinned black actors and actresses getting all the same roles and opportunities constantly. Or oftentimes you will see in black sitcoms and films there'll be a dark-skinned mother or a dark-skinned sister for the first season or two, and then out of nowhere they will switch her out for a light-skinned one. This is very interesting. So how does one dismantle colorism? It's not a one-day process. It's not a one-day thing. It takes constantly decolonizing your mind, space, and social circles. It's advocating for more dark-skin representation on film and in media. We must do all the work of unlearning harmful complexes that, as Black people and as people of color, have been taught to maintain and hold as true. We have to advocate and love on dark-skinned people, not just when we deem them consumable or aesthetically pleasing. They don't have to be a model in order to, truly be respected and loved and cared for. And here are my references. Thank you.